Alright, let's go ahead and finish this section up. The last thing that I want to go over is estimating and applications. Alright, so let's start with estimating. First thing we want to do is round each number using front-end rounding, and then we're going to perform the operation. Okay, so let's go ahead and see what this looks like. If we start with 194.2 plus 6.825, let's go ahead and estimate. 194, if we estimate this, our first digit is the 1. We look at the 9, it tells us to round up. We are going to put a 2, we're going to replace the 1 with a 2. And I'm going to replace all the non-decimal digits with zeros. Remember that we only cut them off if they are in the decimal section. So this rounds up to 200. 6.825, my first digit is the 6. We look at the 8 and it tells me to round up to 7. We can go ahead and discard all of the decimals because 7 is the same thing as 7.000. And now we can go ahead and add. So if we go ahead and add 200 plus 7, we get 207. Okay, let's go ahead and find the exact answer. Remember that we want to go ahead and line up our columns. So my 6, I'm going to put it underneath the 4 so that my decimal points line up. And then we bring the 8 to 5. Alright, if we go ahead and add now, starting on the right, we get 5, 2, 10, 11, 10, and 2. We bring down our decimal point and we get 201.025, which is close to 207. All right, let's look at example B. Now I will tell you that the book presents this incorrectly, and so I'm going to show you both methods, but I just want to talk about why it is incorrect. So our estimate. The way the book presents this is they want to round to the nearest whole number. And so for instance on this one, 8 will stay the same, it's already just one digit. And they are rounding 0.92 to 1. If we subtract, we get 7. So remember this one, as this is how they are doing it in the book. Now, as I said, in my opinion, this is incorrect. In my opinion, the digit that we should be rounding to is the 9. 0 is not really considered a digit. And so in my book, this should be rounded to the 9. And if we do this, we get 8 minus 0.2 tells me to round down. We get 0.9. If we subtract, this is equal to 7.1. Now, as I said, me personally, you should never round to a 0 as your primary digit. So if you do it either way, I will give you the credit for it. But just keep in mind that in future math classes, this is probably going to be rounded to the 10th instead of to the whole number. All right, so let's find our exact answer now. I'm going to put my 0.92 under my 8. Remember that after the 8 is a decimal place, so we get 8.00. We go ahead and subtract, so I need to borrow from the 8. It becomes a 7. 0 becomes a 10, which then becomes a 9. And 0 becomes a 10. If we subtract, 10 minus 2 is 8. 9 minus 9 is 0. And 7 minus 0 is 7. And note that this is close to both of our estimates, so this is correct. Let's try a couple more. All right, C. If we round, remember we're using front-end rounding, so for my first number, I'm going to look at the 3. The 8 tells me to round up, so it becomes a 40. The second number, 7.716, my 7 is in the front. I look at my 7 after the decimal point. It tells me to round up, so this is going to become 8. And again, I argue with the book on this one. When I look at 0.6, I think we should be rounding to 0.6, but the book chooses to round to the 0. The 6 tells me to round up, and we get 1. So now if we go ahead and add these numbers, we should get 49. All right, for our exact, let's go ahead and look at this. So I'm going to put my 38.55 first. My 7, I'm going to line it up under the 8. Line up my decimal points and line up my other columns. And then my 0.6. I'm going to add zeros. Remember, you do not have to, but you can. And now if we go ahead and add straight down, we get 6. 5 plus 1 is 6. 5 plus 7 is 12, plus 6 is 18. 1 plus 8 is 9, plus 7 is 16, and 1 plus 3 is 4. We bring down our decimal point, and this is in the ballpark of 49. All right, last example. If we use front-end rounding for our estimate, my 2 is in the front. We look at the 7. It tells me to round up, so I'm going to make the 2 a 3, replace the 7 with a 0, and discard all of my decimals. Minus. 8 is in the front. The 3 tells me to round down, so I'm going to leave my 8 alone and discard my decimals. And now if we subtract, we get 22. All right, for my exact, we have 27.96 minus, we're going to put the 8 under the 7. We line up our decimal points and we line up our other columns. All right, now if we go ahead and subtract, I cannot do 6 minus 9, so I need to borrow from the 9, make it an 8, and make the 6 a 16. 16 minus 9 is 7. 8 minus 3 is 5. I cannot do 7 minus 8, so I'm going to borrow from the 2, make the 7 into a 17. 17 minus 8 is 9, and we bring down our 1. We bring down our decimal point, and 19 is fairly close to 22, so this is correct. All right, so that takes care of estimating. Now let's go ahead and look at some word problems. Okay, example 1. It says, Namiko is comparing 2 boxes of chicken nuggets. One box weighs 9.85 ounces and the other weighs 10.5 ounces. We want to know what is the difference in the weights. Difference means subtract. So I'm going to put my larger quantity first. I'm going to put my 10.5. And I want to subtract 9.85. Since this is subtraction, I do need to add a 0 to the top number. Now if we subtract, I cannot take 5 away from 0, so I need to borrow. I'm going to make the 5 a 4 and the 0 a 10. 10 minus 5 is 5. I cannot do 4 minus 8, so I need to borrow. Just go and borrow from 10 and make it a 9. And the 4 into a 14. 14 minus 8 is 6. 9 minus 9 is 0. And we bring down our decimal point. Include correct units, and we get 0.65 ounces. All right, let's look at example 2. All right, we got lots of numbers running around here. So the first thing that I'm going to do is kind of just write out a simple problem so that we can see everything that's going on. Okay, so it says Dwayne's bank account was overdrawn by $23.77. That is a negative number. The bank charged a $29 fee. That is also a negative number. He deposited his $583.29 paycheck. That is a positive. Before withdrawing $50, that will be a negative. We want to know what is his new balance. So the first thing that I'm going to do on this problem, there's lots of ways to do this, but I'm going to combine all of my negative numbers together. And just like we saw in the last presentation, I'm going to do this disregarding signs. So we get 50. Since all of these are negative, I'm going to add them. And it doesn't matter what order you put them in. Since we are adding, we do not have to put the zeros, but if it helps you, go ahead and put them. We get, starting on the right, 7, 7. 3 plus 9 is 12. And 1 plus 5 is 6. Plus 2 is 8. Plus 2 is 10. We bring down our decimal point. So what this turns into is negative 102.77 plus 583.29. Okay, we have different signs now, so I want to subtract. I'm going to put my larger number on top. And my smaller number on bottom. Alright, so if we subtract, we get 9 minus 7 is 2. I cannot take 7 from 2, so I need to borrow. The 3 becomes a 2, and my 2 becomes a 12. 12 minus 7 is 5. 2 minus 2 is 0. 8 minus 0 is 8. And 5 minus 1 is 4. We bring down our decimal point. We need to determine the sign of our answer. Our larger number is positive, and so this is correct. This is our final answer. So my balance, or Dwayne's balance, wish this was my balance, is $480.52. All right, that takes care of this section. Next thing we will look at is multiplying decimals. So go ahead, take a quick break, and I will see you again shortly.